All right, good evening, everyone. Hope you can all hear me all right. Thank you very much for joining tonight, and a warm welcome to everyone. There are loads of you here and loads of you set to join in the next few minutes, but we thought we'd get the ball rolling. Hope you're all excited, as excited as I am about the conversation that we're going to have about TikTok in the next hour, about how to use TikTok as a journalist. So TikTok has been with us now for almost 4 years, which feels quite hard to believe. It's grown at a phenomenal rate, with 1 billion global users and 100 million active users across Europe. So probably unsurprising that journalists, if they haven't already, are thinking about how they can best use the platform to reach new audiences. And indeed, many of them have already started using TikTok to great effect, and some of them are here tonight. Just before I ask the brilliant panel to introduce themselves, I've just got some quick housekeeping about how the session is going to work tonight. So we will have an initial panel discussion of about 20 to 30 minutes, and then we will go to questions from everyone. Your mics are all off, and I'm afraid you can't unmute yourself, but please do feel free to ask any questions in the chat function on Zoom. And feel free to ask questions at any point, but I won't come to them until we get to the questions part of the hour. We'll do my absolute best to field all the questions, and we will go from there. Great, so if we can now move on to our panel. I know you're all here to see them and listen to them. Panelists, please could I ask you to introduce yourself, your name, your job, and if I could also ask you to let everyone know, out of interest, what your favourite TikTok account is. It doesn't necessarily have to be a journalist TikTok, just a TikTok account that you personally just really enjoy. So if I could go to Sophie first, please. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Daisy. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Lovely to be with you here this evening. I'm Sophie, and I run TikTok's comms in London. I've been here for 2.5 years. I have a background in working in-house in PR across lots of platforms. So I've got a bit of background about the industry, and my favorite TikTok account is a beekeeper account called the Texas Beekeeper. And she has an insane number of video views on her account. The reason that I love it so much is because I love the tone of the commentary on her videos. I find it really soothing. It's almost meditative. She has this incredible way with bees where she goes to places where there are swarms of bees, and using her bare hands, she moves them from unsafe places and puts them in hives and then kind of looks after them. And although there's something kind of quite repetitive about her content, it's also I really enjoy it. It's really, really informative. So that's my favorite one. There's another, I know you only asked one, but quickly, there's an account that's all about butter. And I learned how to make chicken skin butter the other day, and that's literally my favorite thing. So that's my second one I snuck in. I'll leave it there.
Brilliant, thanks. I think Eamon's busying away from the Widge side, just putting those in the chat if anyone's interested in having a look at those. Monica, if we could come to you next, please. Hi.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Apologies if my Wi-Fi cuts out. I'm currently in a hotel in Malta at the moment, but it's such a privilege to be here. Thanks so much for having me. So I am a journalist at the BBC. I work for BBC Look North as a reporter and a presenter, but I'm currently on attachment at BBC Panorama working on my own documentary. It was an idea that I actually found on TikTok, just scrolling through as you do, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. So now I'm really excited to be working on that. And I'm currently, my 5th month of working on the documentary. And I am a self-confessed TikTok junkie. I started it in lockdown, bit of a love-hate relationship. And now honestly, I'm obsessed. Favorite TikTok account has to be, I don't know if anyone's heard of Sevda. She is just my absolute fave. She always does videos, what I eat in a day, what her daughter eats in a day. And I think that's just brilliant about TikTok, because you learn about so many different people from different walks of life to their religion, their culture, what they eat. And I just find it so fascinating. If I want to be inspired, sometimes I go on Stephen Bartlett. And there's another one, she's a South Asian girl, a young woman growing up in America. Her name is Simply Sri. And she basically just talks about what it's like growing up as an Indian in the West, and her videos are hilarious. So that's a bit about me and the TikTok accounts that I like.
Cool, thank you, Monica. And Sophia, hi.
Hello. So my name is Sophia Smith-Gaylor. I'm a senior news reporter at Vice World News. When would this have been? Back in December, I won the Innovation of the Year award at the British Journalism Awards for pioneering TikTok as a news gathering and publishing tool. I am just about to hit 400,000 followers on there. I've had nearly 80 million views from my videos, having first begun on TikTok 2.5 years ago, sort of just before, well, I guess a bit of a while before the world came crashing down with COVID-19. But that's how long I've been on there for. And my favorite account would be Maddie Lucy Dan, who is a doctor that I really like, who uses TikTok really effectively. My two favorite accounts, I think when I think about all my favorite accounts on TikTok, they are probably all involved in sort of science communications or healthcare communications in one way or the other. But what's really good about Maddie Lucy Dan is that she combines really authoritative information and content about health, and then she'll make a random video about a new sort of cream she's trying out for her face, like her talking about her skincare regime. You get all aspects of her life and you really feel like you get to know her. So she's my favorite.
Fab, thank you everyone. Hopefully give people a bit of an insight, if you're not on TikTok, as the sort of the mad and wonderful world that is TikTok. So my first question really is, I think, a bit of a assumption a lot of people have about TikTok, and I think it's fair to say that none of us here really, just looking at those who I can see, we haven't got many teenagers here, I'd say. So my first question is, given none of us, I don't think, are teenagers, are we all too old to be on TikTok? And if I could go to Sophia on that first.
If anyone is asking or thinking, am I too old to be on TikTok? It's a question I get all the time. And in one fell swoop, they've told me that they've done zero research on TikTok. They've told me that they've spent no time on TikTok, because anyone who has sees all age demographics and knows that within comment sections, you have all age demographics engaging with you. That can be a reality alongside the other reality that we know this app certainly engages young adults and teenagers in a way that we're starting to lose sight of when we're looking at other platforms, for example, like Facebook, which are hemorrhaging audiences in this demographic. So it's two things can be true at the same time, that it's an app that a lot of young people are on and that all age demographics are on it.
And what about you, Monica? What's been your experience in terms of images?
So, I mean, I joined TikTok in lockdown. I think I was about 27 or something. And it was a love-hate relationship. So I joined it, started doing these dance moves and copying all the trends, and then deleted it. And I thought, what am I actually doing on here? But then I started utilizing the app and telling people about my nanny, so my mum's mum, and her story of being a partition survivor, her story of getting married at the age of 13, and just utilizing something close to me, a story close to me, and something that I'm so passionate about. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I've built myself a niche here. And Nani's story went absolutely viral. And I was getting interactions from children, literally children as young as 11, 12, to teenagers, to people in their 60s, 70s. It was amazing. I didn't even realize that you had people on the app in their 60s or 70s that were actually interested in Nani's story. And that's when I realized, actually, do you know what? You're not too old for TikTok. And sharing Nani's story made me realize that. Although you do have young audiences who are genuinely interested in the stories that you put on there, like with the behind the scenes news stories that I've done. it's a bit of both. So although you've got the younger generation, it's amazing to see other age groups too. So yeah.
And Sophie, speaking kind of as someone who works at TikTok, can you help dispel this notion that we're all too old for TikTok, even if we might feel that we're all too old for TikTok?
Yeah, and I come to this as someone who might work here, but I use the platform a lot, but I don't necessarily produce a lot of my own content. And I would, say that I watch a lot of TV, but I also don't produce any TV content. So, you can be on TikTok and you can, consume and use the For You feed and get information without having to produce loads of content. And we see that with lots and lots of people, that are the split of people who are using the platform is really, really varied. It's not just in one age demographic, it's equally split overall. I would encourage, just getting on it. It's a very different style of platform. The content that's on there, it's not the same as other platforms, and it's important to kind of get to know what the look and feel of being on TikTok is about. And when I first joined, I've always used technology, and I remember using the product and thinking, wow, this is a different level in terms of the bar of the product. It's really advanced, and the way that very quickly I was able to give, so I'm a single mum, I'm dating or trying to date. I have to cook meals really quickly for two children, and that's the kind of the content that I've being able to direct it to show me is really, really relevant to my life. And I think whoever you are, whatever your interests are, you will find content, and it will come to you, and it makes it much more relevant as a product.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to podcasts where people have said, news organizations just think they can just take a clip of a film that they've done and put it on TikTok, and people are saying, you've got to speak the language of TikTok in the way that you're telling your stories, and that's really important. So I suppose just now we've dispelled this myth that we're too old for TikTok, because we're not. In terms of starting out on the platform, I know that you've all talked about just trying to consume as much as you can on the platform, and that being a helpful way to start. I just wondered if you had any other thoughts in terms of tips for journalists who are just thinking of starting out or might have just started out, and I'll go to Sophie on that one first.
Yeah, so the best way that I found to think about when you're starting on a new platform, which can be quite overwhelming, I know that's how I felt. I felt that when I started on Instagram, and I definitely, felt that when I started on TikTok of, how do I fit this into what I do? And the most simple way that I found to break it down was to think of an axis. And so on one side, on the y-axis, I'm a working mom and I work in tech and I work at TikTok. And then on the other axis, I'm a single mom with two children. And so the content that I produce, it has to fit within that axis of either the work that I do and the job that I do, or, my life as a mom. And so when I'm doing stuff, I try and think very much about, does it fit in this axis? And if it is, how do I make it relevant for TikTok? So I think, if you want to, as Monica talked about, there are some people that come on and they show everything about their lives. But equally, I talked about, the Texas beekeeper. She only talks about beekeeping, and the pool cleaner only talks about cleaning pools. And so, if you are a food journalist and you just want to talk about food, then that's fine. Or if you want to come on and, be much broader, then just think about the boundaries between what type of content you want to produce, how you want to put yourself out there, and use that as a guide for the content that you produce for TikTok. The other thing that I would also say is the biggest, and I definitely have not produced anywhere near as much as Monica or Sophia, but the biggest shift for me was, instead of taking lots of photos, I started taking lots of short video clips, even 1 or 2 seconds. And so I stopped taking photos, and I just take lots of short clips now. And then I, often upload a batch of those in one go. And then the technology is really clever. It puts it into a video and it selects the best music. And it's, really like a self-serving process. So that was the biggest small thing I did, was stop taking photos and start taking small video clips.
Thank you. And so, Monica, you've spoken about, how you were doing the dances, and then you decided to stop that, and then you came back on and told a personal story. From there, I mean, do you have advice about how journalists would then use it? Because I know you then did some sort of behind the scenes footage of filming, presenting.
Yeah, for me, so it was a bit of trial and error, and I would overthink and just come to the point where, no, I don't want to post it, I'm just going to leave it and delete the app. But in actual fact, I thought, let's just be fearless. And I just, by fluke, decided to make a video at work of me behind the scenes and me presenting a program. I then uploaded this, and all of a sudden it must have hit about 1 million views overnight. And I was blown away by the amount of interaction, people wanting more, people saying, wow, well, tell me more. Like, I want to know what happens when you present a news program. What happens behind the scenes? Don't you feel nervous? And then there was a massive influx of questions. And then I did another video, and I thought to myself, oh, okay, right, this is my niche. It clearly, when I did it in lockdown, I don't think it really has been done before. And then what I decided to do is almost make a series out of it, things you didn't know about TV news presenting. And it's a series having that niche, building on your passions and engaging with your TikTok audience is what really built up that following. And it was at least, posting 1 or 2 videos a day. And it got to the point where I was doing it well on TV presenting, and also at the reporting side of things as well. And then it was clear, I knew what was working well, and that was all my studio TikToks. And it's also replying to people's questions, keeping your videos short and snappy, because, if it's too long, people just lose interest completely. And it's just building that platform for yourself, something where you're almost the expert in what you're talking about, and people, they get hooked in your content. And I think that was just really fascinating to see. So that's really how it all got started for me, is that I started doing behind the scenes on TV news, something that wasn't really around at TikTok at the time.
Great, thank you. And I'm sure something, as you say, you probably didn't really think would take off, I think it's quite easy to dismiss your life and think it's not that interesting, but actually to so many people it really is. So I think we can all be sort of, barriers to our own success sometimes by
exactly. And I think we're all unique and we're all different, and I think it's all about celebrating that. And where I think, oh my god, what we do it all the time, but in actual fact, people are learning and people find it so fascinating. And also I think being South Asian and a bit young as well, it also inspires a lot of other girls similar to me to be like, actually, that's where she is, that's what she does, maybe I could do that one day. And it was really lovely to see some of those messages.
We'll come to people's reactions in a bit, actually. But Sophia, what would be your tips for people, especially journalists starting out on TikTok?
I definitely agree with what Monica said about finding your niche, finding something that you think is not being served on the app, and filling that gap. If you are a journalist, you come with specialisms, you come with fascinating insight into different parts of the world. That's why all the creators that bring their professions to TikTok and go viral, it's exactly what they're doing. It's really interesting that there was a report that was released this year, like a piece of research where researchers did a content analysis of the different kinds of content that journalists put out on TikTok. They did it with, I think, I can't remember the number. I think it was a good over 60 journalist accounts with over 100,000 followers, and they went through them and they looked at the different kinds of things that they do, and it was a real variety of content that they made. So behind the scenes stuff, like Monica said, a lot of explainers, giving, sharing information. So sometimes you'll see a lot of content that isn't necessarily someone explaining the news, but is literally kind of saying, this has happened and this means this, and then that's it. It doesn't need to necessarily be a really long thing. but certainly quantity is key. If you make one TikTok and then you haven't got a clue what to make for the rest of the week, it's probably better to launch when you have an idea of ideas that you feel like can at least start feeding the beast for at least a few weeks or a month or so. What else would I say? You need to get a sense of what healthy visual grammar is on TikTok, which will take you consuming lots of TikToks to get good at. Consuming lots of TikToks takes a lot of time. For me, I was watching TikToks anyway. It was part of my daily media consumption. So it wasn't a habit that I needed to shift. I had it anyway, and it's very much part of my working day. But certainly if you combine TikTok making and TikTok viewing together, that does take hours a day. It can take hours a day. It sort of depends how you want to fit it into your life. But those are some of the things that I would start off doing if I was joining now. The other thing about joining now is you are joining an app that is oversaturated with creators. Monica and I had a head start in that when we joined. There weren't as many journalists on there. There weren't as many content creators who were journalistic. So now it's certainly a more competitive field.
Indeed. I won't get too much into the content creator versus journalist debate on here right now, but it's certainly something for everyone to be aware of. So some questions have come in, which I think was a helpful point in terms of what should your TikToks actually look like? How long should they be? So the first one is optimum length. Is there an optimum length for a TikTok? Let's go to Sophia again first.
So there are different lengths you can use at the minute. You can use up to 15 seconds, up to 1 minute, up to 3 minutes, and 10 minutes. I've never trialed the 10-minute one. I trial up to 3, and it's very rare that they'll ever do as well as the shorter formats. That being said, sometimes a TikTok may not go viral, but it may deliver more important results for you than virality. So you might do a TikTok that doesn't get over 100,000 views, but for whatever reason, it hits the exact niche it needed to hit, and you get the DMs that you needed for that story, or you get the insight that you were after, in which case it does the job for you if you're using it as a tool like that. So I just want to emphasize that, because it's not always about big views. But certainly if you want a super high number of views, it's probably more likely to happen if you use the under 15-second format. Doesn't always lead to high engagement or growth, but it will lead to high views. And typically for explainers, I will time it to 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Sophie, what would be your advice here? Do you have many people on the 10-minute videos at the moment?
I think people are always interested in testing out the different formats. I would definitely agree with everything Sophia said, though. For me, if I think about it as how I like to consume, if you don't get me in the first few seconds, I'm gone. And there are some creators whose content I really like. So one of my favorite accounts is also Therapy Jeff, who talks a lot about when I'm dating, very important, how to spot red flags and toxic people and stuff like that, which is really, really out for me. And I will often listen to his content because it's longer and it's really of interest for me. So if you've managed to build yourself a niche where you have a community that is interested in your content, then I would say you can afford to be longer. But if you haven't done that yet, then absolutely shorter is definitely where I would suggest you go. And, you can say a lot in 15 seconds. We're in an era now where, I remember recipe videos in YouTube being 6, 8, 9 minutes long. You can do that in under 1 minute now because just the way the editing tools work means you can get a lot more in and people consume a lot more in a short period of time. So.
Monica, anything to add on that? Have you found different lengths have different results for you?
Yeah, I think Sophia and Sophie just hit the nail on the head there. I think the first few seconds of a video is very engaging. I think Sophia does this a lot. Did you know? It's something that basically attracts you into that video, that makes you want to keep watching. So if it is, quite long or nearly a minute, I'm engaged. It's like, I wanted to know this from the very onset, therefore I will continue to watch. I think personal stories as well, that tend to be around a minute or so, story time. I will be very much invested in those. And with the trends and stuff, they tend to be around about 15 seconds anyway. I remember with my behind the scenes videos that I did for TikTok, actually, and I used the hashtag learn on TikTok. One of the things that they said to me was, with behind the scenes videos, it's great if you could keep it under a minute. And I noticed when I did keep it under a minute, in fact, around 30 seconds, they did really well in comparison to my ones that were over 30 seconds. So personally, for me, I've just noticed that short videos work well, but it's really hard trying to convey something and adapting even my stories that I do at work into a very short video, but it's doable and it does work.
And how many TikToks should people be posting a day? I mean, I know it's a bit of a how long is a piece of string question, but my understanding, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that TikTok's quite a beast and you kind of have to feed the beast, and probably posting once a week, once a fortnight isn't really going to get you the growth that you probably want. Would you say that's fair, Sophie?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think Sophia touched on this earlier. If you're going to come to TikTok, you've got to commit to using it as a platform because you see the benefit of it. And, whether that's that you sit and you plan out, okay, I'm a food journalist and I'm going to talk about, recipes and products, and I'm going to and this is, the cadence of how I'm going to do it. You have to have quite a managed, like, well thought out approach to it. The more ad hoc you are, just the more amateur you will be at it, because you've got to get under the skin of the community, under the skin of the platform, and then deliver your expertise and your niche and your content within that. So yes, I think, I would encourage, people who are interested, spend time on the platform, really just, spend time using the algorithm, get to know it, find, accounts that you like, look at what they're doing, and then plan out how you're going to approach onboarding to TikTok.
And then what about filming yourself? This is one more from Monica and Sophia, but do you have any tips on actually the practicalities of filming a TikTok? Sophia, I'll go to you first.
Try your best to have good lighting. Try your best for the audio to be crisp and clear. What else?
Do you have a tripod, or like, how do you have your phone?
Yes, so you wouldn't necessarily need a tripod if the book that you can stand your book up against on your table hits your face at a good angle. Like, you don't necessarily need all of that stuff. I have got a ring light, which, as you can see, I use for Zoom panels. It's a multi-purpose tool that I don't only use for making TikToks. I have recently bought a proper camera, however, and when I'm making my content, I'm starting to use that camera a little bit more when I have the time and when I am here, because I do largely work from home. So I can have that setup ready. And it's a very quick process for me because I'm a trained video journalist. So if you find using a proper camera very daunting, of course, like, there's absolutely no need to, but I just really like how it makes my videos look. It's a sort of just a personal thing, and it's how my favorite creators' content looks. So it was almost aspirational for me to have my videos looking like that as well. But I built my whole following making them on my phone. So that's what I mean. It's really not a given. That's the main thing. I would say that living with other people, living in a shared flat, it can get challenging filming TikToks because My rooms that I'm in right now is like really small. I don't always have the best lighting. It's nice to set it up bigger, in which case I need to do it in a communal space. So it's not always the easiest thing to do. But equally, when I'm filming out and about, I literally do just use my phone. When I've made TikToks sort of out in the field, I just use my phone. So it's very easy. What I would recommend, however, is a CapCut to edit videos on the go on your phone. It's a free app that you can download that, for me, is an easier way of editing and including image overlays than if I were to try and do it on TikTok. I have also found, Sophie, you can raise this with TikTok. I found one of the reasons that I've started, basically, I started filming all the time on my photos at photo video camera and no longer in TikTok, because I was beginning to experience audio issues. So for whatever reason, my audio was starting to really go out of sync. And it happened on too many videos that I was just like, I can't rely on this anymore. I'm going to film them all outside the app and then ingest them. So that, for example, is an issue that I came up against. And what was frustrating is that while I was editing, the audio was in sync, and the audio only went out of sync after I published it. Right. And if you, on TikTok, if you take down videos, or if you delete them and re-upload them, you often won't see the same engagement rate, or you sort of seem to disturb somehow the attention your profile is getting. So that's just for like people watching. That's an example of every now and again, you kind of, and I'm sure Monica can speak to the same, you encounter like an issue, like a kind of tech issue, and you're like, how do I get around this? And you kind of just work it out and figure out an alternative method. But I meet tech issues all the time in my day job. So like encountering them on TikTok's no different. It's just sort of a given. But yeah, that was a bit of a ramble, but I hope there was something in there that was useful.
Monica, any kind of issues you've come up against that you could help share?
Yeah, initially I just hated taking selfie videos. I was like, oh my God, my head looks really big. What is this? And you could just see everything. So then I invested in the tripod with the ring light. And what's great is that you can actually minimize your face sometimes. So I was thinking, okay, this is interesting. So then you can utilize your backgrounds, and you can utilize different, because you can basically just superimpose your face on a different background. And I think that makes it really interesting and engaging for the audience. And initially I didn't really want my face in the videos, but then I think it's quite important that you do, because you have that personal connection with your audience. They know who you are. Obviously they can familiarize the videos with you. So I think that's really important. But I think colors and backgrounds, utilize it. Videos in the background, all these animations, you've got it there. It might take a bit of time, but in actual fact, I think the audience will actually very much appreciate it, and it does go a long way. And I've noticed, I did a video for the BBC apprenticeship scheme actually, and I just used different backgrounds from BBC News, and it worked really, really well. And it made it onto the main BBC account as well. But yeah, I think in terms of the sound as well, so I just always, especially when you have to duet a video, like, I just struggle with the sound all the time. So I've noticed that headphones always work best with sound, and I tend to talk into the mic as well, just so it's a bit more sharp, it's a bit more clear. And I also edit my TikTok videos before I upload them. It's so much easier to do it on another app, and I use InShot. For me, I personally just find it really easy. You can just slice it here, there, and everywhere. You can get it to a specific time, and I do my transitions on there as well, and then I just upload it onto TikTok.
Sorry, Daisy, just a couple of things I thought was worth mentioning as well, because if you don't necessarily want to put your face to the camera,
I was just about to ask you that.
I was going to say, I use, and if I've shot quite a lot of content and I upload it, then I use voiceover as well. And that's really helpful in terms of, especially for any kind of broadcast journalists out here, but, you know, in terms of looking at a clip and realizing how long I've got, and then like writing the script to go against it. And then if I don't manage to say what I need to say in that clip, then I can re-record it and add it incrementally. So I use that quite a lot. And then there's also green screen as well, which is also useful for adding commentary around an issue or anything like that.
Question here, are you using a separate microphone rather than relying on the one on your phone? We could, Monica.
I mean, I'm not that tech savvy, I'm afraid. So I just use my normal iPhone headphones and I just talk into there. I think it's just my phone, really. It's just one of those where it picks up background noise really easily. And especially when I'm doing voiceovers. So as Sophie was saying, whenever I have to adapt my, say, a news package and I want to adapt it into a TikTok story, what I tend to do is just do a voiceover and just really minimize the package down to simplify it into about a minute clip or something. But I tend to just put something over my head if I don't have my headphones, so there's no background noise interference or minimal background noise interference, or I just tend to use it with my iPhone headphones.
And Sophia, it sounded like you have a separate mic, is that right?
Not when I'm filming on my phone, and when I'm filming with my camera, I record the audio with voice memo on my phone, but I'm looking for an alternative method, possibly.
Okay, right, some questions coming in. I'm going to take them from the top. Actually, I'm going to take them from the bottom, take Donna's first. How do you find useful content for journalists, like trends? Let's go to Sophia first.
I just watch TikToks. I just watch them until I find something that I think, oh, I can adapt that to me.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what I mean when I say you have to spend hours on there, because you're not going to get a sense of trends, and you're not going to get a sense of up-to-date trends. Like, it's no good doing a trend that's like 2 months old. You only get a sense of that if you watch it all the time. You cannot search TikTok like you can search other apps. It doesn't allow, it's not a big sort of search tool interface, really. So it is time and viewing.
The For You page can become pretty self-serving though in terms of the algorithm. So Sophie, do you have any other thoughts on how people?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, if you've got a niche or a specialism, so, you know, as I said, if you're a food journalist or a makeup journalist, beauty, like if you're spending a lot of time training the algorithm, that's what your, you know, your area of interest is, then, you know, you will get videos that are like served to that community much more quickly than other people will. So again, like using the app, training it, giving it signals of what you do or don't like will really help you uncover those trends much more quickly.
And Monica, you mentioned that you found, this isn't necessarily trends, but you found some case studies for Panorama via TikTok. So could you talk a bit about how you use TikTok to find sort of journalistic material?
Yeah. Well, hashtags, to be honest. Well, I mean, I'm just an avid TikTok user anyway, so I scroll ridiculous amounts of times before I go to sleep, actually. And I just came across a story. It was about image-based online abuse, actually. It was quite haunting. And then you just look at the comments. So what I admire about TikTok is that people are very honest, open and raw, and share their own personal stories. Obviously, we have to contact them and verify it to make sure that it's all accurate at the end. And it was just through this person sharing her story, I thought, oh, okay, right, we're onto something here. And then it was the interaction that she was getting in the comment section, and other people then sharing their experiences through then her sharing her story. I was able to figure out that this is just not happening to her, it's happening to a lot of others. And she almost built this network where they address a certain issue. And then it was just through some investigating on the app and talking to these young women, these girls, that I realized there's definitely a story in this. And then I started to search hashtags, and a lot of other people were speaking about it too. So I think the app is really good. I think it's a great app for finding as well as adapting what I do on a daily basis and the work that I do and the packages that I put out there, as well as the behind the scenes stuff. I think it's a really great app for finding case studies, finding those stories. What are people talking about? What are the trends? And sometimes the trends are dangerous, and that makes another investigation in itself. But it's really fascinating.
Another question here for someone called Eliza. Seems that TikTok is used for quick, quirky and or funny content, which we touched on. How do you balance the tone of being engaging when you're tackling more sensitive journalistic subjects? Or is there a creative hack to engage users for more serious content? So quite a long question there, but an important one. If I could just go to Sphere on that one first.
I'm just quickly reading it as well. Well, why do people want to watch serious news on other, mediums? It's kind of a similar reason that you put it forward in an engaging way. You point out why it's interesting to the audience and why they need to take notice of it. So like Monica mentioned earlier, it's all about the kind of visual grammar of online video, and that principle is not TikTok specific. It's what I had to deliver anytime I used to make social videos for Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. You lead in with the hook and then you bring people into the story. So yeah, for me, there's no difference really. There's always a hook. It doesn't matter what the nature of the story is.
And what would you say about that, Monica?
I think I agree. It really just depends on the content. So with my behind the scenes videos, obviously I'm a bit more myself, I'm a bit more happy. I'm not really addressing a serious issue. This is just me, it's what I do. Welcome to BBC Look North. So I get to obviously have my personality, but when it's a news story itself, I just change my tone slightly. Obviously, you just have to adapt to the nature of the story and what you're trying to portray. So naturally, I'll just go into more serious tone, and it's how I start it. And I think that really sets the tone throughout for that whole TikTok video.
Mm-hmm. Another one for you two, and then I'll bring Sophie into the next one. How do you balance representing a news organisation's tone of voice or angle with your own brand or voice? Monica, any thoughts on that?
I think it's, yeah, so you when obviously being at the BBC, like at the forefront is right, okay, so the BBC have to be okay with whatever I put out. I know editorially that's fine, so I'm sticking with the editorial guidelines, but it doesn't mean to say that I can't show my personality and be who I am. And I would never want to change that with the content that I put out. I still want to be me, I still want to showcase me. But I know my videos are okay, and my editor is always happy with them, which is great, but I just would never take my personality away from it. And even with some of the news reports that I adapt to put on TikTok, then obviously I can't really, it's serious, I change my tone, etc. I adapt to the story. But for any of the videos, or if I'm talking about Nanny, I very much, it's my personality out there, it's my passion, it's my story, and just don't be scared to be who you want to be.
And Sophia, I mean, some of your sometimes you would do TikTok, for Vice's account, and then some, and often you'll be doing them for your own account. So I don't know, is there anything you can talk to in how you would change that, or if you're aware of how your own TikToks might be perceived to be from Vice? Is there any kind of advice you'd give on balancing that?
Yeah, it's strange. I've had 2 jobs while I've been on TikTok, and I couldn't have had more diverse experiences in terms of what I was able to do. Unlike Monica, like I was explicitly told when I was at the BBC that I wasn't allowed to film in the building. I was explicitly told I wasn't allowed to put my journalism onto TikTok. And that is why, if you go back in my early account, you'll see a point where those videos kind of abruptly stop. And you'll see where I pivoted to doing a lot of content around languages and me, like personal stuff. Those videos ended up going super viral, so that kind of worked out really well for me. But by no means whatever news organization that you're at, you're always, it doesn't matter what content you're doing, you're always an ambassador for your employer, right? I know that that's certainly with the guidelines at the BBC. The same would be the same as at Vice. Whatever I do online, whether it's my TikToks or my tweets or my Instagram posts, if you did something bad, it would, be reputationally bad, not only for you, but who you work for. So as long as you stick to the social media guidelines of who you work for, which I've done at every employer that I've worked at, you're going to be fine. What I would say is that obviously when I make content for Vice, really the style of journalist-led explainer that Vice do is one that I helped develop for them. If you look at the videos that they do, they look a lot like mine. So in that respect, when I'm doing an explainer, there's kind of no difference between the explainer I do for Vice and the explainer I do on my own account. The differences are editorial. So that there's a lot of content I do on my account that might be a lot more British facing because I work for an international news organization, but I personally have a lot of British followers. So I'll be catering stuff that way. What else might I be doing? I do occasionally do more light-hearted, quicker videos. And obviously that's not got a place on the Vice account, but it's perfectly like happy and fine being on my account. And yeah, I don't really feel like there's ever that much of a shift.
Much of attention?
No, yeah, never. And in fact, certainly I would have, I think, yeah, I'm like 95% sure I was hired based on the fact that my TikTok was a big toolkit.
Yeah. This is kind of going question slightly veering into the content creator territory. How does TikTok add to your earnings, or is it just a bit of fun? So Sophie, I'm wondering if you could talk to how journalists might use TikTok to bring in some income, especially if they're freelance. Slightly harder if you're staff, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I am not a journalist, so, you know, I will let Sophia and Monica come in here. I would say what TikTok gives you is a really big platform and a big audience to get your journalistic content and your abilities out there. There are some things we've done in terms of monetization tools. I would say that, you know, those are things that we're constantly always reviewing, and you know, at the moment I would say it's about getting your brand, you're getting you visibility as a journalist, because what we can really offer you is a lot of video views versus any other platform. So there are other models that other platforms offer. We're still kind of looking at which way we're going to go down, but you know, it really is about, you know, video views and awareness, and that is something you don't really get on other platforms.
Monica, I would imagine, I mean, I could be wrong here, but I'd imagine you've not really started your account or used it to monetize. I mean, are you aware of anyone else doing that in the journalistic space?
Because I work for the BBC, absolutely, I will never be allowed to do that. But one thing that the BBC were brilliant with is for me to actually become almost like it was a TikTok ambassador using the Learn on TikTok hashtag, but utilizing all the behind the scenes videos that I was doing. And I took part, I think it was about for over a month or something. And I just had to post a video every single day. It had to be under a minute long, and it had to have some, not necessarily trends, but we could use like certain types of music, etc. And that's when I noticed that my following was really increasing. So that's what I did. But obviously it was just inspiring the younger generation to break into the media and giving more of an insight into what I do as a news presenter and reporter. But yeah, no, not quite making any money on TikTok.
And Sophia, I mean, you know, you've got a huge following, and I'm sure your following helped you get your book deal. I suppose is a bit more of a sort of passive way of creating new income streams. But are you what would be your thoughts on journalists turned content creators and ways in which you might be able to bring in money from TikTok?
You're right in that. For me, that's what it's been. It's been passive income from random opportunities that come because people know about me in a way that I don't think they would have known about the work that I do if I hadn't gone on there, essentially. But no, I'm not on the Creator Fund. I'm not, yeah, I don't see any money from my account. What I would add, however, is that I follow a number of journalists who are freelance in the US who are on the Creator Fund and do brand partnerships. So there is a way of doing it. It's just a bit more a part of the American journalism scene than it is here. I imagine it might happen here. It's just that in the creator scene, generally speaking, you often see things start in the US. So some people are certainly making it work. Cleo Abram would be an example.
Great, thank you. It's a good one for everyone to go and have a look at. Right, quite a difficult question. I have to say my media law is a few years out of date now. What are the legal requirements for journalists, defamation law, etc., when reporting on TikTok? Thanks. Now, it might be that all of our media law training is out of date, but I'm going to put this out there. So, Sophia, have you ever come across issues on this?
Well, you wouldn't be able to like tweet stuff that breaks media law. So it's the same principle. You wouldn't be libelous about someone in a tweet. So why would you be libelous about someone in a TikTok? Of the same rules apply. It's not platform dependent, is it?
Monica, what about you?
Yeah, so one of the main things I think for any social media is that whatever rules apply to online BBC journalism, TV journalism, you has to stick with your own personal social media account. You can't go off board, you can't go off topic, you can't ignore the rules. You've got to stick to the rules, and you always got to think to yourself, well, that's what my editor said. If that goes out in your TikTok, are you happy with that going out on TV? So it has to tick with all the editorial guidelines and whatnot. So yeah, there's no difference.
Sophie, any defamation cases come across your desk?
Not so far, no.
All right, we're getting into the final 10 minutes. And so I might just have to go to quickfire and not come to all of you panelists and get these answered. Do you have separate personal and professional accounts? I'll go to Monica to answer that one.
No, I don't. I don't. I think I more so just post work-related stuff at the moment. But I think if I was to showcase a bit more about me and my life, I probably would have a personal account.
What about you, Sophia?
No.
No.
I literally have 3 jobs at once at any given time. So the idea of me having to like feed 2 TikTok accounts, not just one, totally would ruin my life.
I think it just speaks to the fact that you've really got to bring a lot of yourself and your own personality on your own personal self to TikTok. That you.
What I would add is that a big part of me sharing my work on social media is to build a rapport with my audience. It is to build trust so that we can discuss my stories, that they can bring me stories, that it's a really sort of pleasant feedback loop, and it makes me feel really happy about being on the internet. And so I always maintain privacy around what I need to keep private, but I like that I can show my audience my work one day at the same time as I showed them the pasta that I've made for dinner. I really like that. And obviously, if you start carving out a private and public self on social media, you're inevitably not going to be sharing certain things with the audience, and you're never going to build that kind of intimacy. We live in an age in which we share aggressive intimacy with celebrities. We follow their every move via Instagram stories and things. And this is the shift I see happening with high profile journalists.
It's a big thing for people to be happy to do. But it does seem, as you say, it does seem to be the way it's going. This might be one for Sophie initially. We are trying to work out how we can best use TikTok for our local newspapers. I guess our niche would be our geographical area. This is from Alex Jenkins. Any advice would be appreciated.
I am just trying to find the question.
That was at 1838.
Okay, Alex, which area are you in?
You have to type it in the chat, Alex. Oh, unmute.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. Hi.
Okay, hi. It's Sussex in England, yeah.
Okay, because we're doing some regional news stuff at the moment, but mainly around the big cities. Really happy to follow up with you after us, Alex. I would say there is a lot of kind of local content going on the platform. I would maybe look at, are you presuming about your own TikTok account rather than about covering TikTok, yeah?
Yeah, starting on.
Okay, I mean, I would say account takeovers by local creators, local news stories that are in your area that you can do, that you can break through TikTok. Like if there are local events, if there are, things that you're going along to, is there one person using it? doing the account?
Not sure at the moment. We're not sure how best to work it because we weren't sure whether to have it under a journalist name or under our newspaper's name.
Okay, well, I would say it. I mean, again, it's probably better we take it offline. Why don't we follow up after so we can get you some advice? Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question there, Alex. And I think it's something lots of publishers are dealing with because TikTok is so personal. You know, do you go with a lead journalist, a bit like Sophia was for BBC, or do you kind of do your own brand account? Okay, next one. What happens to copyright of material published on TikTok? Have any of today's panel had their material reused in a bad way? Monica, have you ever experienced that?
Personally, I'm trying to think. No, I don't think I have actually. I mean, no, I don't think I have. I mean, you get the odd haters that perhaps duet a video and just say BBC fake news or something or another, which is really annoying because when you do put yourself out there, you're basically representing the organization you work for, and not everyone will like that. Not everyone will, you know, although it's you doing it and you're not BBC News, people represent you with BBC News, and inevitably, I mean, in the comment section, you can probably tell like fake news, or they duet my staff and they just sometimes put fake news, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And so that's a bit frustrating, but it is what it is. And I can't really do anything about that, but that's the only experience I've had really. But none of my stuff has actually got removed because of copyright issues.
What about you, Sophia? Not suggesting that you've breached copyright, just has anyone gone on to use your stuff and that been an issue?
No, the only thing I'd say is that it's super cheeky to post someone's content without asking their permission first. I would say that, because obviously if someone puts up a TikTok of mine onto Instagram Reels, you know, there might be a reason that I didn't put it on my own Instagram Reels, for example. And I think it's just really poor internet etiquette. And obviously if I wanted to be very antsy about it and say you didn't have permission to do that, take it down. I have done that before with one, but yeah, you just obviously you put a video out onto the internet, you lose control over it. I think that's something that you do often have to accept. And there are in other instances, I've been thrilled that someone has posted my content without asking my permission because it's like someone I adore, in which case that thought doesn't even sort of go past my mind because I'm only so grateful that they don't notice me. So it's really dependent, yeah.
Very honest of you, Sophia.
And then, sorry, just to everyone listening, we've got 3 minutes. So if anyone's got a burning question, ask it now. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go to this one as the last question from the floor. What is the biggest mistake you made when you first started out making journalistic TikTok videos? And what do you think we can learn from this? So I'll go to Sophia first. Not watching enough TikTok at the beginning?
I think no, that was never my problem. My problems were probably always elsewhere.
Watching too much.
I think just one thing I would say is that assuming audiences care about the journalistic process, if you don't give them a reason to care about it, why would they care? So that's the caveat I would give about behind the scenes content. What additional value are you bringing? And obviously behind the scenes content only works if you work somewhere interesting behind the scenes. The majority of my journalistic life has been working from home or working at my desk editing a video. It's not something that if I filmed myself doing it would get loads of views. So it's that element. I guess I remember at the beginning when I was trying to sort of explore the process, it would be quite rare something would do very well for me in that respect.
Yeah. And what about you, Monica? Any words of wisdom now, things you wished you'd done a bit differently that people here might be able to learn from?
Yeah, I think it's very much, letting the hate get to you a little bit as well, because like I was saying beforehand, you are representing your news organization and you can get all sorts of people say negative things about you, coming to your messages and even on Instagram, etc. But it's almost just taking a back step and just being like, no, like you get to that point where you just have to ignore it. And I think one of the things, I think perhaps, I mean, I need to be better with it now because I've kind of come off it a little bit, but it's just exploring with more series, really. It's not overthinking it and thinking, no, this isn't going to do well, or no, and just automatically just preempting that it's probably not going to work, because in actual fact, it will. I think in TikTok, like, difference is celebrated, and something really unique, and it can be celebrated, and people find that interesting. So it's more so a case of, yeah, just do it. Why not? Trial and error. Just explore it. Don't overthink it. Just do it.
Great. And final question from me to the panel in our sort of final minute. Who is your favourite journalist? Who are your favourite journalists using the platform currently? So if I could go to Sophie first.
I mean, I'm going to say that it tends to be broadcast journalists that tend to find their home more naturally on TikTok. Obviously, I love Monica and Sophia. I've been following Sophia for a long time, and I buzzed her on Instagram as soon as I saw she'd moved over. Victoria Derbyshire's great. Max Foster's great. Shaniqua Paris, who's a CBBC Newsround presenter, she's great. There's a couple of newsrooms, Matilda's newsroom and Charlotte Gray as well. They're all things I think you should look up if you don't know them.
Great, thank you. I'm writing some of those down furiously. Monica, any to add there?
Oh, I completely agree with Sophie. When I first joined TikTok, I was obsessed with Sophia's content, actually, and it was all about learning Arabic and different languages. And I found that really interesting because I started learning it and then I just kind of gave up. So I think also, yeah, Max Foster, Victoria Derbyshire as well. Max Foster nails the trends, and how he showcases the story is brilliant. So yeah, that's my go-tos.
Sophia, any more to add?
Got to shout out my girl Emma Bentley, who I began on TikTok alongside, who's still making excellent content showing behind the scenes about being a camera person, which is always super cool. Please follow her. And also Cleo Abram, who I mentioned earlier. And let me make sure I say her surname properly. Yeah, Bianca Graulau. She is Cleo Abrams in the US. Bianca covers Puerto Rico, but they're both fantastic at delivering bespoke journalistic content for TikTok, and sort of documentary work that goes out on TikTok.
There we go. Right, that's a great way to end. Thank you so much to our panelists for fantastic insights. I really hope that's been valuable for everyone. Hope everyone's going to go away, get TikTok if you don't already have it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the Chinese spying on you. There's no reason to be afraid. Get TikTok, enjoy TikTok, and enjoy posting on TikTok. If anyone wants to follow up afterwards, I'm sure we can manage that. Feel free to get in touch on social media. I can put you in touch with whoever you need to. I think also Sophia's just put Sophie's put her email there in the chat. If anyone wants to follow up with her, particularly around TikTok, for anyone that they work with, please feel free to do that. Finally, feel free to leave, but for those who want to stay, there are a couple of women in journalism events happening in the next few weeks. The first is, they're in the chat, at 1848. Next is Language Matters on Disability, a workshop for journalists reporting on disability and disabled people. And the second is ahead of the Platinum Jubilee, exploring the relationship between the palace and the press. So do have a look out for those. And just say a big thanks to everyone and have a great evening. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you, Daisy. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Monica. Thanks for joining from Malta. Have a nice holiday. Bye.
See you later.